Hello YouTube, this is Insane Monster. And as you can see, we have the beginning part of a new What If. This was picked by the winner of the What If Lotto. So, given the rules that I've stated about the What If Lotto, if you guys haven't been paying attention to any of the update videos I posted, then go check them out for the ones that I've stated the rules of them. So yeah, as for the title, what if Deku had Volt Rabbit? As you can see from the thumbnail, he will have the abilities of Carrot from One Piece, which includes electrical abilities besides the rabbit characteristics. So there is that. Now with that being said, hit it. Now then, I believe we should start with a little bit of background. In this What If, Inko is actually the sister of Miriko, the rabbit hero. Due to how the quirk gene works, and sometimes the randomness of it, including mutant quirks, it is possible for two siblings to look completely different from one another, not just in eye and hair color, but also skin color. Especially when you consider people like Mina who have drastically different skin color than the average human, at least by our standard. So, yeah. So, we go over to where Deku is born. And when he's born, they see a kind of a fluff ball baby that looks like a rabbit. Miriko, at this point, is a hero and remarks that her sister's son looks like he has a quirk similar to hers, though he does have a good amount of fur on him that she doesn't. But Inko is happy to have her son. As Izuku was growing up, he had drastically incredible leg power like his aunt. Though, unlike his aunt, for some reason, the mutation or quote unquote evolution of the quirk rabbit made it to where his bone structure was actually far more durable and able to withstand the force a lot better than Miriko's bone structure could. Once Miriko found this out, she offered her sister to train Miriko offered to train her nephew. Inko wasn't against this, but had the rule of not pushing him too far since he was young. He was okay with that. Though for this to go on smoothly, she actually had to get a license to teach someone how to use their quirk, meaning that he would be able to use his quirk under her supervision without any penalty or any problem with the law on quirk usage in public. As Miriko was training him, one time they actually went camping on somewhat of a family trip. As Izuku was running around and having fun, Miriko was keeping up, telling him, "Make sure you don't go too far where I can't see you, okay?" As he replies, "Okay, Auntie." As he lands and looks up at the night sky, he takes a deep breath in as he just loves the outside air of forest areas. It just feels natural to him. Perhaps it's somewhat of a natural instinct of his animal like quirk. But as he looked up into the sky, he saw a full moon, and he just became mesmerized by it. As Mirako noticed this, she checked on him, asking if he was okay. But then suddenly, his fur, his hair on his head, all started to turn pure white as his eyes began to glow red. The fur from his tail, as well as the hair from his head, began to grow rapidly as he roared, causing everything around him to just be shocked and stunned by this roar. Even Inko and Hasashi heard this as they go to run, seeing their son. As the transformation was complete, the fur across his entire body was white, even his hair, as the hair from his tail and his hair from his head were quite long now, and it looked as though lightning was enveloping his body. Inko was worried about her son, but Mirako interrupted Inko before she could say anything, as Mirako states, "Hey, kid, let's see what you can do real quick when you're like this." As after changing, he was able to calm down quite a bit. As he agreed with his aunt, they sparred a little bit. He tried to hold back as much as he could, but it seems as though his physical abilities were heightened. Not only that, anytime she clashed with him in their attacks hitting one another, her body became jolted with electricity, causing her movements to become more sluggish. And it also looked like the electricity coming off of him could extend a good bit past his body. After this, he looked down, putting on a hat that he had in his pocket. After covering his eyes, it looked as though he was turning back to normal. Afterwards, they went to the doctor, and turned out Izuku's quirk would be considered a somewhat of a mutation on the animal-like quirk. He would be able to generate bioelectricity, and upon looking at the full moon, he would automatically transform whether he'd want to or not. After some training, it was found out that he could transform even without the moon. But this is just something to critique it for it to be a quirk. After some training with Mirko, they found out that he can stay in the transformation form much longer at night, even more so during a full moon. But during the day, he could only hold it for about 30 minutes. After that, he became extremely exhausted. Though the training for it was good and went rather well. As time continued, we get to the point where Bakugo and his friends are being jerks, as Bakugo is arrogant about his quirk and bullying a girl with green hair and some frog-like features. As Izuku gets in between the two, he tells them to stop. But of course, when they aren't really listening, they try to go and attack him. But upon getting angry, he transformed and beat them off, like beat them back a good bit, causing them to retreat. As Bakugo said, "This isn't over. I'm going to beat you," causing a bit of a rivalry between the two. As he extended his hand, still transformed, the girl looked up, seeing his eyes, his fur and hair, the way that they were. She looked at him and said, "Beautiful." causing Izuku to blush a little bit as he then re- his body just turned back to normal, gaining his normal green hair and fur, introducing himself as Izuku Midoriya, as the girl introduces herself as Tsuyu Asui, as he helped her up and they became friends. Izuku was glad to have a friend, especially one that could keep up pretty good with the training he did on his own when his aunt wasn't around, given that Sue had the frog ability allowing her to jump around, similar to a rabbit in quirk terms. As time continued, Izuku actually asked Sue out, though this did take a lot of poking and prodding from his aunt, telling him to work up the guts, which eventually he did. He did accept, as they were now officially dating. Of course, Bakugo would still mess with him about it and all that, but that seems kind of like Bakugo in some aspects. Others, he's just a very explosive ball of rage, and that is extremely literal. As we now get to the point of the actual anime, as he leaves home using his quirk to get there faster, he hurries up and gets to class. As the teacher walks into the class with all the classmates there, he starts talking about the aptitude tests for their future, tossing them up in the air, remarking that they all want to be heroes. Though, when he states that Bakugo is going to try to get into UA, obviously Bakugo does his whole little speech. And the teacher then states about Midoriya also going to apply, which Bakugo is annoyed, but sees the point since his aunt Mariko is a pretty powerful hero in her own right, even though her power isn't necessarily as flashy as his, though he still remembers that form Izuku took. Ever since then, he's never seen it again, but he knows how powerful it was, and how powerful it should be now would be pretty incredible. As we see that the school day is over, and Bakugo asked him why exactly did it look like he was coming in late today, as he states that there was a villain attack near at the train station, and Bakugo asked, "Oh, and I'm guessing you stuck around a little bit to take notes in those books again?" As he nervously said, "Yeah, yeah." Bakugo sighed, saying, "How can you be such a nerd and still such a powerhouse? Seriously." As Izuku remarked, "Oh, really? And what about you? The calculations you do whenever you go flying around using your explosions need a lot of brain power. So, how exactly are you not a nerd?" Causing Bakugo to get a little angry as Izuku just hurries up and gets out of there before he starts throwing explosions all over the place. Bakugo does yell out, "Get back here!" Though knowing that Izuku is faster overall isn't really much of it can't isn't really much of an incentive to follow him since he knew he'd probably get away. As Izuku does go down the same way as in canon, meeting the sludge villain, though this time he goes and uses his bioelectricity to shock the sludge villain into submission, stunning him. He can use the electricity from his quirk Volt Rabbit without fully transforming, though without transforming, it is greatly diminished. So next we see All Might bursting through the little sewer system, only to find that the sludge villain is already captured. Congratulating Izuku for doing a great job uh, nullifying the villain as he's put into the bottle, though All Might warns him that using his quirk that way could have ended badly if it wasn't a case of self defense. As he goes and jumps away, Izuku was kind of awestruck at the moment at seeing the number one hero and being praised by him to the point he forgot to get his autograph. As his head drooped, All Might does land on the roof and quickly just poofs. Though, as he going down the steps, he hears an explosion. Checking his pants, seeing that there was a hole in them. Keep in mind that when this happened, All Might was wearing civilian clothes. Not the kind of thing that might be made to withstand like G-force level jumping power, like All Might normally does in his hero costume, which is specially made to handle that kind of speed. So there's that. As the sludge villain did break out and grab Bakugo. Obviously, Izuku ran over to see what was going on. As he took a look and saw that none of the heroes were really doing anything. And as he looked, he saw Bakugo captured by the sludge villain and suffocating. He couldn't just wait any longer. He pounced right in, effectively being somewhat of a blur to the heroes as he was jumping around from the ground and the walls of the building in the district, the little shopping area, as he began to transform, diving in as fast as he could to stab into the sludge villain, grab Bakugo by his school uniform, and rip him clean out of the sludge villain. After slowing down, the sludge villain recognized him a bit, although the body structure and that face were the same. The color of his body and such were completely different. As he went straight in, stabbing his hand into the sludge villain and electrifying him, completely knocking him out with the enhanced bioelectricity within this transformed state. As the heroes run up, about to scold him, All Might quickly jumps in, congratulating him on doing a good job stopping that villain and saving that boy. Which the heroes couldn't really remark against it since they didn't really do anything to help the situation or save Bakugo. Though before the rest that were charging in could get to Izuku, he quickly jumped away, getting out of there and transforming back. Since they only saw him in his transformed state, he thinks might be good. Though he's then caught by Bakugo, who remarks that he didn't need his help and that I could have gotten out of there by myself as he storms off, with Izuku thinking, really? He was being suffocated by him, and it didn't really look like his explosion were doing much. But he's always been pretty prideful. As he begins to walk away, he's then stopped by All Might this time, surprising him as All Might then just spits up blood and deflates, causing Izuku to get into a fighting stance, questioning who he really was. As All Might then began to explain that he was really All Might and sewing his wound, telling him about his injury, and then asking him if he wanted to be his successor. As Izuku was stunned by that question, he asked, "What do you mean?" All Might elaborated that he can pass his quirk down. As Izuku was shocked by this, he took a moment and thought. He was strong, but under different circumstances, it could have ended badly. He has speed and such, and a good amount of power, especially when transformed. But if he stays in that form for too long, he ends up kind of burnt out. So it isn't entirely good to rely on it. He took a deep breath and thought about the options and what he could do, all the good he can do as a hero. He always admired All Might and his aunt, Mirako, since he normally called his aunt Mirako, since it was her hero name, and he idolized her partially for having similar quirks, but also idolized All Might. He looked up at All Might and stated, "Yes, yes, I would be honored to inherit your quirk. There is one thing, though," as All Might stated. "What is it?" He pulls out his notebook and asked for an autograph, which All Might smirked at, stating, "Of course, that's not really a problem." Giving an autograph inside of his hero notebook, taking a glance at it, stating, "It seems as though you are somewhat of a fanboy in some aspects, though your quirk does remind me of the hero Mirako." As he scratches the back of his head, stating, "Well, yeah, that's actually my aunt." Which does suck All Might, but also makes him think that actually makes a lot of sense. That rush in and get the job done kind of action did remind him of Mirako, since she always was the person to just go into the situation and get the job done. Though for him, it seemed different, like he moved before he even realized it. I would imagine, even in his weakened state, All Might's eyes could follow it, since when he was transformed, All Might could probably move even faster if he was going all out. So there is that. As he tells Izuku where to meet him, they go to Dagobah Beach, and he begins training. Of course, his aunt offers to train him for UA, but he states that he has his own training to get done on his own. As All Might instructed him and such, he did end up cleaning the beach about 2 months before the UA the UA entrance exam. Sorry, the last video I recorded and such. But he was relieved, as All Might stated that he did extremely well, as he plucked a hair, looking at Izuku, stating, "Eat this," causing Izuku to pause with a weird face, stating, "What?" But All Might explained that he had to eat some DNA from him, as he did do it begrudgingly and ended up inheriting one for all. After some time of digestion, he powered up and went for a kick. As he kicked, it was about 85%, All Might stated, which is pretty good. He believes that the bioelectricity might be partially responsible for enhancing his body's strength and such for him to be as strong as he is, meaning that his normal physical strength is about enough for 85%, though he recommends training in order to minimize the percentage so that way he doesn't accidentally destroy an entire building, which Izuku does agree with. As training continues, obviously, All Might is then left with dealing with some other stuff, since he is going to be a teacher at UA, telling Izuku that for the next 2 months he could train how he feels is necessary and also make sure to study. During these months, he trained with Asui as well as studied with her, as they were hanging out a good bit. Every now and then, he would even help her with her younger siblings while her parents were away. Her father didn't really mind, since it seems as though her daughter, uh, Sue, was quite happy with him, and his other kids were didn't have a problem with him either, though he still was somewhat stern with them. As Sue's mother was accepting of him, I guess better than the father, since that seems somewhat typical when it comes to fathers with daughters. So yeah, as everything was going well for their training, Izuku was able to minimize it to about 8% at the moment, since restraining this power did take a lot of focus. As he sighed, remarking, "About 8%, I think. It isn't much, but it's something. And I, I think I might be even stronger at 8% with without transformation, without transforming, than I was when I did transform." As he looked at his hands, wondering what it would be like if he did transform and use One for All at the same time. Though he thought that maybe he should save that for later. As the training and studying continued till the day of the UA entrance exam. With all this being said, we'll end this part right here, and during the next part, we will start off at the UA entrance exam. I do hope you enjoyed. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell, and make sure it's set to all so that you're properly updated for all of my new videos that I upload. So, with everything covered, do have a good day or a good night, depending on when you watch this, and see you later.